Labour are to put sanctions on Israeli settlers. Britain has issued fresh sanctions against Israel over its morally unjustifiable escalation of violence in Gaza and demanded an end to its cruel and indefensible 11-week block on humanitarian aid. Foreign Secretary David Lammy condemned the monstrous situation as the UN warns that 14,000 Palestinian babies could die by Thursday unless action is taken to ease the crisis, which has left civilians severely malnourished. He announced the suspension of trade talks with Israel, imposed sanctions on 3 individuals and 4 entities involved in the settler movement, and said Benjamin Netanyahu's actions were wholly disproportionate and utterly counterproductive. So note, these are not blanket sanctions on Israel, nor are they on government officials, the ones, committing a genocide, but rather they're on 3 individuals who are facilitating the settlers, and there is still nothing that suggests Labour will halt arms sales. Now, Zara Sultana asks why arms sales have increased under Labour. David Lammy dismissed it as clickbait. I just asked the Foreign Secretary why arms sales to Israel under this Labour government now exceed those under the Tories. He dismissed it as clickbait. There's nothing clickbait about genocide. He has Palestinian blood on his hands. So the UN has warned that 14,000 babies will die by tomorrow, and the government will still send weapons to Israel, won't sanction the monsters who are doing this, and still won't call it a genocide. Instead, David Lammy is dismissing genuine concerns as clickbait. It's sick. Kevin, how can we trust them to even do this, right, when they've increased arms sales despite proudly announcing they suspended a percentage of them? Words mean nothing. And this is just a case of too little, too late.
Well, this is nothing. This is absolutely nothing. This is going to have absolutely no impact, and it's designed to have no impact. We have David Lammy, a member of the Labour Friends of Israel, and Prime Minister Keir Starmer, another member of the Labour Friends of Israel, 2 avowed Zionists, basically running interference for the Zionist entity. That's all that's taking place here. They are not doing anything functionally to stop this. These piecemeal nonsense sanctions and this stopping of negotiations around a free trade agreement. What possible difference is that going to make? Absolutely nothing. And again, it's designed to be that way because they want Israel to do what Israel is currently doing. It's so sickening to me. They're still selling record numbers of arms to Israel during a genocide. They're still flying at our taxpayers' expense flights from RAF Akrotiri to do reconnaissance on behalf of the Israeli government. We know this several times now over areas that those planes have flown. We've had Israeli bombers then target those areas. We are actively complicit. This government is up to its neck in blood. That's the be all and end all of this. And their response to this is basically nothing. It's to dismiss any criticism, as we saw with Zara Sultana or Jeremy Corbyn or any number of other people, including Tory backbenchers, people who have been members of the Conservative Friends of Israel for years, have called for much stronger sanctions, have called for a recognition of the state of Palestine, all of which have been denied by the supposedly Social Democratic Labour Party. It's a disgrace. It's an absolute disgrace. I don't know why there aren't significantly larger protests in the street over this.
I mean, why do you think these Conservative backbenchers and some people in the Labour Party, at least on rhetoric, are changing a bit? Again, I agree with you. These are not strong enough measures. They're pathetic. But why do you think they're getting caught up by Conservative MPs? Do you think potentially some people have realised this is all on record? When the time comes, we could be prosecuted and facing jail. Do you think this is probably what's pushing these people?
I mean, in theory, they could they could face jail, but I think they know in their half hearts they won't be. I think they're looking at more the kind of judgment of history. They realise that the live streaming of the current Holocaust that we're seeing in Gaza, and indeed extended to the West Bank, let's not forget, it is there for the world to see. It's too obvious. We have seen 18 months of brutal genocidal slaughter, and now you've got people like Smotrich just openly coming out and saying, no, we're going to take over the whole thing. That is now Israeli state policy that they are going to take over the entirety of the Gaza Strip. This was never about protecting Israelis, as we know from the fact that they killed lots of Israelis themselves, the IDF, on October 7th. This is about land grabbing, as it always is, because that's the entire goal of Zionism is to, bit by bit, the anaconda, just closes its grip constantly and takes more and more land, little pockets of land here, there, and everywhere. Whether it's an individual house in the West Bank, or whether it's this carpet bombing and taking over of the north of the Gaza Strip, or indeed the entirety of the Gaza Strip. That is all this was ever about. The idea that this was about defeating terrorism is ridiculous. They are the terrorists.
I mean, 100%. What I was going to say here is basically, you mentioned Smotrich, by the way. He's just openly saying. I mean, multiple ministers are openly saying that, look, this is just genocide, right? But when I was reading this story and researching it, some people in the media, obviously mainstream media, were saying, "Oh, this is David Lammy's strongest words yet." They're quite stern words. They're really, really not, though. I mean, the language they're using is still things like, "This is counterproductive." Counterproductive. This is not counterproductive. This is slaughter and genocide. Like, use the language, please. I don't want to hear, "Oh, this is worrying. This is concerning." It's fucking beyond that.
Yeah, it passed that point. It passed that point 70 years ago, frankly, but it especially passed that point on October the 8th, in all honesty, given the ridiculous response of
I think
the
they
Israeli
passed.
state.
You could say they passed the point on October 7th because we know that they deployed the Hannibal Directive.
Yes,
Israel
absolutely.
literally killed their own soldiers, quite possibly killed their own civilians too. So even on the day, Israel's response wasn't proportionate. It wasn't just targeting Hamas and defending themselves. They were killing their own too. But they don't care, and they knew that.
Exactly. They could have had, they'll use the hostages as, ironically, human shields, of course.
Literally.
Because they could have had them back. Literally, a deal to return all hostages was put on the table months ago, a year ago, in fact. And they've turned it down because this was never about getting hostages back. This was never about defending Israelis. This was never about defeating terrorism. This was about the Greater Israel Project. This is about the Zionist entity wanting to do its cancerous work of taking over and spreading, because that's what it does. That's all that it is. That's their entire goal. Everything you have to understand about the way in which the Israeli government acts has to be seen through the prism of Zionist expansion, because that's all they care about ultimately.
And even for this, right, Labour are being attacked. I mean, some are saying the UK are turning on their allies. Prominent Zionist Jake Wallace-Simons, also known as Bold Wallace-Simons, was saying that this attack is unjustified and said that it's a betrayal of a friend to appease people, and I quote, "who hate everything we stand for." So that's his words, not mine.
Well, hang on. Sure. Well, hang on. If we're attacking them, can't we just claim that we have a right to defend ourselves?
True. But the thing is, though, and he is obviously one of the most prominent Zionists, but no matter how pathetic Labour's response is, the Zionists will still cry foul.
Exactly. And that adds to the point we were making a second ago. If they're going to react that way anyway, and they do, the cry bully always strikes out, do something properly then. Actually do it properly. Be on the right side of history, because they'll respond to you regardless. And history will not judge you well. I think Keir Starmer and David Lammy, along with their Conservative predecessors, will be remembered in infamy forever for their involvement in this.
They will be seen as monsters.
This will be one of Britain's saddest modern chapters. What a bleak, miserable, squalid, to use the word of the day, chapter in British history.
I mean, we are living through history and not a good period, and these people will be seen as monsters because they are monsters.
Yeah.
I'm sick and tired of not that I've ever been mealy mouthed, but I'm just sick to death of seeing this concern trolling, and the media are they're so bad at this that even when they slightly call it out, it's like, well, these are strong words. No, it's not. Okay, there's a literal genocide going on. The media's been complicit. Almost every single politician has been complicit. So many right-wing the right-wing commentaria and the so-called centrist commentaria. Jake Wallace-Simons, Bold Wallace-Simons, is utterly complicit, and their name is going to be dragged through history. And I cannot wait to see how they are seen as utter monsters, seen for what they are. And I know we're on the right side of history. We'll get called anti-Semitic or whatever, but trust me, in the future, when we look back, they're going to say, well, we never supported it. Well, do you know what? We've got the receipts now. I mean, we're in a world now where you can't hide anywhere. We've got the internet. We've got video footage. You can't claim ignorance here. We
Yeah.
got you.
Yeah,
we fucking got you.
There's no denying this. There's no denying this whatsoever. It's been one of the most well-documented war crimes in the history of the world, and it's happened over a pretty extensive period of time now. And if you're just now getting slightly concerned or a little bit angry with the way in
Yeah.
which Israel's conducting
It's not
itself,
good enough.
your hands are covered in blood and they
Yeah.
can never be clean.
Support independent media. Support social justice that's there on social media. Thank you. Turn left.